right, now we've completed putting our grid paneling system up. I would like to bring out another point at this time. First of all, you notice that we've nailed almost every row here. That's to ensure that it's tightly secured to the wall. And we also nailed 16 inches on center. If you have to, you nail every layer of grid, every row of grid where the brick is going to sit, just to make sure that it is secured well to the wall. I have another tip. I always tell people if they have any pieces, say this size, left over if they cut it, I tell them to save it. The reason for that is you could take this and mount it to a little piece of plywood or a board and put some bricks in here, and then you have a little sample board on the side. The reason for that is you can check to see how you're doing in your mortaring. You might want to practice it. You might want to practice how your cleaner might be working. Or if you decide, and we're going to go over this, if you're going to seal it, you would like to seal some of the brick and see how it's going to dry or what the look that you want. You don't want to start doing it on the wall where you've done your work. They always say, yes, do it in a little corner, but where do you start it in a little corner to do it where it might not show? So keep 2 of these pieces. They're always handy to have, and put the brick and the mortar on it and keep it so that you have it on hand at all times. All right, to start this, we're going to start, as I told you before, we're going to start at the corners because we have corners on both ends. I'm going to take an eye-level row, and I'm going to put the bricks in both rows to see how they're going to fit in the wall. So if I do have to make an adjustment, I could make the adjustment just on these 2 rows. And I do 2 rows because one brick is offset from the other. And by just doing 1 row, I could be messing up and having a difficult space on the second row. So you have to do 2 rows. What I'm going to do now is place the adhesive over this a linear array of holes. I'm going to put down approximately 1/3 of the bead, about a 3/8 of an inch of adhesive. I don't want to put too much on because what happens if you put too much on, you will find that eventually when you put your brick in place, it may tilt a little bit. So at the end, you always check it. You just rub the brick in place and get it close together. So anywhere from 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch of adhesive is fine. Let's put this on. I'm going to start at the corner and bring it around in this direction. Okay, now again, I'm going to place it right over that row of holes, as you can see. And I'm going to go this way. I'm going to come this way. I usually would take it in one sweep all the way around, but I think that I would be in the way of the camera, so I'm going to do it this way. Now you want to get that on those holes because that is going behind the wall and into the back of the grid. Okay. Now we have 2 rows of adhesive. That is the working area that we're going to start from. Again, as I said, I will start at the corners. I will place my first corner, and I usually give this a little bit, and I place the brick right on that ledge. Look how nice that sits on there and how nice it does the corner. Now, just to show you, these are these regular corners. What we've done prior to the show is we cut them down to give you a half brick so that you can do the offsetting of a running barn. And the reason we do put a corner here is that when you look at this wall when it's complete, by seeing a corner, it looks like the brick is actually 3.5 to 4 inches wide. I then place my second brick in place, just get it on there and make sure it's in solid. Now, as I said, we start at the corners on the other side. If you notice, I have one long leg coming to a long leg. I would put this corner in place. Again, I would take my half corner and I would put my half corner in place. Now we have the corners in place. What that leaves us is this space. Now by putting the brick in these spaces, I can almost do them by eye. And what I do is I leave it roughly, the joint around 1/2 inch, plus or minus. You don't want to have a joint smaller than 3/8 or larger than 5/8. So the ultimate joint is anywhere between 7/16 and 1/2 inch. I would place these bricks in like this. And they would sit on each ledge, just eyeballing the size. Oh, look how nice these bricks fit. Oh boy, that guy, when we made this grid in this wall, we made it perfect. Let's complete the rest of the wall by installing all of the other corners and all of the bricks and have the wall with all the bricks in place. The last brick. This is the one I've been looking for. We get that in, we just rub it a little bit, make sure it's in, make sure the spacing is correct, and press it in place. Now the next thing I usually do is I usually check to make sure of the spacing. I eyeball it to make sure my spacing is pretty good. You have the time now in which to move this into place. If you wanted to move anything, this is the time to do it before this adhesive hardens up. I also check it vertically to see if I have them all in place against the grid so that they attach to the grid and that they're not pitched out. That's very good. Looks perfect. This is the way we want to do a brick wall. Something very important that we have to remember. We need at least 24 hours for this adhesive to dry. You have to wait at least 24 hours. The reason for that is it'll lock everything into place and it will dry properly. Then when we put the mortar in the joints, the bricks will not be moving when we tool it. Our next step now is to fill this in with mortar. We would take the cover off the pail and we would pour the entire contents into your 5-gallon pail. Now the reason we're taking all the contents out is that I would like to mix up all the mortar at one time dry, just to make sure that we have a consistent mix. So what we'll do is we'll mix the mortar very slowly while I'm mixing this mortar dry so that it will be consistent all the way through. A good idea now is to, if you wanted to, and I always suggest that you do this, is to take some of this mix out of the pail and place it into another pail. We always tell you to take a little bit out of the pail on the side in case you overmix it and put too much water in it. You could then add some of the dry mix and get the consistency that you want. If you don't have any dry mix left, you at that point have to wait for some of it to set up in the pail before you put it into the joints. Now we have approximately 25 pounds of mortar mix here, and that will take roughly about a half a gallon of water. Let's add the water and mix the mortar up to a consistency, and I will show you that to where we need it to put it in the joint. Okay, we add the water to the mix. Taking our drill, I will run this very slowly in here. Now I'd like to tell you a little bit more about the mix. I told you that this was scientifically made for the briquette products, and being that it's made of that type of nature, we have chemicals in there that have to have time to react with the water. So it doesn't hurt to mix your mix up and let it stay a few minutes. I always let that happen so that when everything is mixed completely, I know I have a very good mix and all the water has reacted with these items, and that I'll have a consistent mix. Another very important thing is that always try to keep your water quantities constant. This helps you in two ways. Number one, if you have a color, it'll keep your color fairly constant. Number two, if you don't, you'll have certain spots on the wall drying before the other spots, and it becomes a little bit difficult to tool it. You just have to be careful when you're tooling that you get everything the same. So we're going to let this sit for a few minutes, and to make sure that we have the right water quantities in here and we have the correct mix. Okay, let's check this mix and see if it's okay for use. As I said, I take my handy scoop, give it a little stir, and now we're at this point where I told you about this bag being very important. All right, one of the most important things is to try it first. I put a little bit into the bag. I squeeze the back of the bag so nothing will come back on me. And then, you notice how nice and easy that comes out? I don't have to squeeze too hard. Now I'm ready to place this into the joints. Now, when we're going to put the mix in the joint, again, we'll take one line and do it. I will do a horizontal line first and do another horizontal line, then I'll finish the vertical. And the reason I'll do this, I'll tell you later when we're doing a finish on it. So we're going to do a horizontal line first. Now, to do a horizontal line, you want to fill the joint. And I would go around the corner normally. You want to fill it so that the mortar is completely in the joint and protruding on the face of the brick, not over the brick. So we're actually overfilling the joint. But what we're doing is we're overfilling it just on the face, not over the edges. Now, if you notice, again, I'm doing a horizontal line, okay? All right, some water is dripping out, but I want to show you that. I want to show you what we do when that happens, so we clean it right away. Let's do another horizontal line. Now, when we get to the corner, we should run the bead of mortar all the way around the corner so that we have it done in one sweep. Okay, let's do a corner. Now we'll do the verticals. Now here's where you get an item where you get a little bit of dye on, a little ran out. You just take a little damp rag and you can just wipe these little black spots right off now. Now we're going to complete the mortaring of the joints and get it ready for tooling. Drying time differs depending on the brick, whether it is porous or whether it is fairly hard. These bricks are a little bit porous, so they'll dry a little bit faster. And do you remember I told you I did the horizontal joints first and then the verticals? Well, the verticals are going to dry a little bit faster than the horizontals. So that's why I did the horizontals first and the verticals. Now when I'm going to tool this, I'm going to try it and tool the vertical joints first. I will do a number of joints first just to make sure that it is dried at the right temperature that I want it to dry at and that the mortar is set up properly, because once it's set up properly, it's just a matter of just cutting that excess mortar off. How do we test for this? Well, after the brick has been mortared like this and it's been on the wall for 5 to 10 minutes, sometimes even less, you would take it and press it lightly. If it's soft, I will be spreading it. So if I went to tool it, I would spread the mortar onto the brick. If I wait until it hardens up, that when I press my finger, it does not spread, then I know it's ready for tooling. All right, now we waited long enough. As you can see, this is just about hard enough where I'm not spreading it. This is the dowel that's in your mortar kit. What you want to do is take that at a slight angle, get to the joint, and just press downward. I see how nice and clean that comes out. Now I know that that is dry enough for me to tool the rest of the joints. And what we would do is we would just take that and tool this down. If you notice again, I'm doing the vertical joints first. Now, an important thing is when you're doing corners, you don't want to take the mortar and push it out from the corner. You always want to push it away from the corner. So if I was doing a corner like this, I would push that, and then I would come around and do my side piece. I would then continue to do my horizontal joints. Start from the corner and run it away from the corner. We finished tooling the wall. After approximately 45 minutes, when the mortar has hardened, we may have some little excess on the wall. To remove that, we use just an ordinary house brush. Now, we don't want to brush horizontally or vertically into the joint. What we will do is we will take the brush on a 45-degree angle, start at the bottom, and just brush any of that excess that's